Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
There goes the opening bell, and the markets have opened a tad lower. It's about 0.25% lower now, 10,735, so it's not 740 plus. It's moving towards 10,730, 733, 34. Okay, we can take that as the opening. So 0.25% lower, minus 25 to 27. The Sensex opens about 80 points lower. That's again 0.2%. And the Bank Nifty also not opened that nastily. It's down about 1/3% instead of being down 0.5%. 26,500 has been held. Let's just get to stocks that are doing that are pulling in favor of the bears, because the index on the whole is in the red. Bharti Infratel, Vedanta, ICICI Bank. ICICI Bank down about 1.2%. Vedanta down 1.2%. Tata Motors falling further after yesterday's 6% fall. Still down about 1%. IOC, BP, HP, and I wanted to ask those stocks from our technical experts as well. They've had a bad time in the past week or so, and that continues, what with a slight inching up of crude prices. The drug stocks also are seeing a tad bit of profit taking today. Cipla, Dr. Reddy's, all of them down about 0.5% to 0.6. What's in the green? Lupin is in the green, still 0.8 up. Asian Paints, Axis, Ultratech Cement, HUL, ITC, Eicher, Indibles Housing, TCS. That's, a motley group of stocks, not giving you anything by way of a pattern. But I guess there'll be more of a stock-specific observation on the mid-cap space?
Yes. In fact, in the mid-cap end, the index is down 0.3%. The market breadth is weak, 760 stocks on the declining side. Voltas is under quite a bit of pressure post that news flow, so down about 3.5% on Voltas. You have a couple of others as well. ICICI Bank continues to fall from the frontliners. Sun TV is falling some more. News reports of a loss in market share last week dragged down the stock quite a bit. In fact, Sun TV is now down almost 15% this month. A couple of others like PNB, Housing Finance, KRBL, etc. are also under pressure in the broader markets. On the gaining side, Info Edge is up in the green, so it's up almost about 3% right now. Jet Airways, a lot of the aviation stocks actually have been moving up, one in anticipation of ATF being brought under the ambit of GST, and Jet Airways has made more purchases. In fact, they've bought a lot of planes from Boeing, so that is up almost in the green, 1.5% right now. Aurobindo Pharma is the big mover from the large caps because of that anti-infection injection approval, and a couple of other stocks, Bata, Britannia, etc., stocks that are once again getting back to their all-time highs. So just keep an eye out on them. Okay, now Bata is a tad bit in the red, but otherwise it's a slightly sluggish opening for the market, down about 23 odd points.
Right. First, let's get our technical experts in. Mitesh, what would you do now? Nifty, Sensex, Nifty, for instance, at 10,740.
No, I think still not closer to the lower end of the range, so I'll wait it out. As I said, I think the first 15-30 minutes will tell you whether there's follow-through happening after the gap down or not. As of now, it doesn't look like. So maybe we'll be closer to that 10,750, 10,850 range. And therefore, buying around 10,700, 720 would be an ideal range to explore buying at those Nifty spot levels. Okay.
Prakash, anything on your radar?
I see a diversion between Nifty and Bank Nifty. Bank Nifty is looking weak. Nifty looks like it could hold here. I mean, this today's low could be a strong support zone to work with. It's bound some support. Two stocks. I think basically Cipla looks weak. We can see a slide here. And TCS looks strong. We could see an up move around 1840 zones. There's a diversion out here. I'll wait for a reaction and short the reaction if it happens.
Okay. Well, with that, Sudarshan, first my specific question, oil stocks. Is there a shorting opportunity?
Yes, with some regret, there is. Now in BPCL and Hind Petro both. While the shorting opportunity is not going to give a large gain, but I think there's more correction on the downside. They've just started it. So yes, both stocks are available to go short.
Okay, well, fresh highs for Bajaj Finance, by the way. I mean, there's nothing new. It's hitting a fresh high every day.
Another day, another high.
Yeah, another day, another high. But almost 1.5 lakh crores now, the market cap only of Bajaj Finance. So 2,400 plus is where that stock has hit today. And Tata Elxsi is the other one. It's had a spectacular run. This year, Tata Elxsi is up almost 40%. And it's hit a new high today above that 1350 mark. Prakash Diwan, I just wanted your thoughts on Tata Motors and All right, we don't have Prakash Diwan with us. From one Prakash to another, I suppose. Your view on Tata Motors and how to approach it now after the fall?
I think Tata Motors still is weak. My target on the downside was around 275. I think it's heading there. And you spoke about Tata Elxsi. Yes, that for me, the target is around 1360. I think it's heading up there.
Okay, Oil India, we should take note of. They made an announcement to the exchange that they have hit some hydrocarbon discovery in the KG Basin. So that is keeping that stock a little excited, Oil India. And probably out of sympathy, ONGC is also higher. ONGC and Oil India both higher. Sudarshan, any trade in either of these?
Any trade in
Oil India or ONGC?
Oh, no, either, no. Oil India is actually at its lows, so it's just going up randomly today on news.
Okay.
Not worth looking at.
Anyway,
there are quickly, Lata.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are two trades. One is to go short in Tata Motors. There is more downside there. And the other is to consider buying Asian Paints for the day.
Okay, you know, the other stock I wanted to discuss is Motherson Sumi. It's hit a new 52-week low today, and that's not something you see very often in the chart of Motherson Sumi. If you pull up a chart from 2018, it started off the year at 392 and now it's at 284. Sudarshan, any thoughts here? I mean, this is a stock that has given a lot of wealth to investors and now hitting a 52-week low. Do you buy it or do you stay away?
No, you sell it. There's more downside here. It's just breaking significant support levels. It's almost as if it's following Tata Motors.
Okay. Mitesh, a final question to you. Anything on your radar?
Lata, I think on the buying side, I do like RBL Bank. I think looks very strong and clearly outperforming, and I think would be a buyer with a stop below 552 over here and look at 585 as the short-term target.
Okay. Well, for a technical analyst, I don't know if Bandhan Bank has enough data. It's a recently listed bank. But from what you have, Sudarshan, is there anything?
Well, it's not enough. It's going in a trading range and a band, but I wouldn't be able to make a comment.
Okay, that's a fair point. Prakash, if Prakash Diwan still with us? Okay, we've lost the connection. Okay, in that case, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us, Sudarshan, Mitesh and Prakash, and giving us your early morning trades. At the moment, the market's still very much within that range, but it's not breaking down. 10,745 now. So the early morning dip perhaps is seeing a little bit of support, but this is neither here nor there. The market has been moving in this range of 10,700 and 10,900, not even 900, it may be 860 or more like it. And today's moves have done nothing to disturb that range. Bank Nifty, you will have to say, is a tad weaker. And that perhaps is more because of ICICI Bank pulling its weight in the red. But a bunch of public sector banks are also in the red. They're not very significant on the Bank Nifty itself. Many of them are not even included in that index. But Bank of India down 1.3, Syndicate down 1%, Corporation 1% Andhra Bank 1%. So quite a few of the public sector banks and even otherwise IDFC, even the non-public sector banks, a bit of a pressure at this point in time. You know,
Tata Elxsi is very interesting. There is a news report which Mangalam has shared with us where they say that they may be the first to hit the road with a driverless car prototype solution. Now, if that comes through, it'll be the it'll be a novel solution for India. In fact, the senior vice president of the company told one of the newspapers that the solution will be implemented by one of the top 5 automakers. No names reported there, but a driverless car prototype solution is something. Maybe that's interesting.
Why are you saying it's good for India? It's bad. The few jobs you have as drivers.
I said it would be a novel for India, not good or bad.
Okay, well, it's not been all that successful abroad so far, but let's wait and see. That's good for Tata Elxsi. I guess that would mean a lot of foreign orders as well, if that technology has been cracked. At the moment, the Nifty continues with the old favourite and perhaps an evergreen stock. Bajaj Finance is heading the list of gainers with a 1.3% gain. Actually, Coal India also doing well at this point. And Asian Paints, we discussed it with both our technical and our fundamental experts. Sudarshan has a buy on Asian Paints. That stock up 1%. And Kotak Mahindra among the banking stocks is perhaps the only one which is a bit in the green. Otherwise, banks are a little under the weather. Later today, the Parliamentary Standing Committee will meet public sector banks, and we will have our colleagues Ritu and Sapna tell us about what the expectations are, but at the moment under pressure, the public sector banks. As well, the Nifty bank itself, which is more a private bank index. With that backdrop, let's invite our market master for the morning, Gautam Trivedi, co-founder and managing partner, Nepean Capital, joins us in our studio. Good morning, Gautam. Always a pleasure having you with us. Indexes have not done much. At this point in time, are you a buyer at all? Do you think it's a good pause the market is giving long-term investors?
I think the market's going to basically drift until the next elections because we've got a bunch of events, including other elections,
state elections. But that's all the way till May 2019 before we get the result. Yes,
unfortunately, I think that is the case. It's a very stock pickers market going forward, and I think has been for the start of this year at least. And I think there are a bunch of issues that are plaguing the market. Of course, foreigners are continuing to exit the market. We've seen the number now swell to $750 million of net outflows year to date. So that's a big number in itself. The SIPs continue to remain strong, which I think is positive. But over and above the SIPs, we're not seeing incrementally that much money coming in now from retail investors. So if you look at even what's competing with equity as an asset class, real estate, thankfully, is still dormant and it's not showing any signs of life as of yet. But having said that, the fixed deposit rates, I mean, if you look at them today, are now moving up. So a 1 year fixed deposit rate of for an amount of more than £1 crore is now yielding 7.25%, and if you're a senior citizen, it's another 50 basis points. Yeah. So I think these are issues which the market is grappling with, and of course, I think foreigners need to come back at some point.
Okay, Gautam, hi, good morning. I wanted your thoughts on what's happening with the PSU banks. You know, this whole IBC and CLT process, people are getting a bit hopeful about the resolution and the impact it would have on PSU banks. You think this is a good place to be for investors, or would you stay away?
I think I'd stay away from PSU banks. And, frankly, I've been asked this question even as late as early last year on this channel and, of course, the other channels. And I think the fact is that are we today even at the halfway point? I hope we've definitely crossed that, but I think a lot of pain is still left. If you look at the power sector, for example, if you look at PFC's numbers, which came in for the last quarter, their NPLs dramatically rose by 12,000 crores from 5.7% gross NPLs to 9.6% as a percentage of total loans outstanding. So I don't think that problem has even hit the banking sector yet, unfortunately. So I think that pile up, and as rates start going up, I think that problem will continue. Secondly, on the IBC question, Sonia, which you asked me, I think the issue there is that it's gotten off to a great start. So 3 resolutions out of the top 12, I think is fantastic. But you have only 40 judges for over 5,000 cases. So that, I think, is a bigger issue. So we've had in the past, I think, pretty good bankruptcy resolution and reforms. But the fact is, the absolute infrastructure to solve these problems, remains a bottleneck. So I think we need to see that step up as well from the government.
Okay. Yeah, I would assume a bit of the power has been recognized because of the Reserve Bank telling banks that,
that's right.
In 6 months you either resolve or take to NCLT. To some extent, some of the recognition has come. But therefore, where would you look? If you're not looking at, you said it's a stock pickers market.
Yeah.
Clearly, one sector you have ruled out, not PSU banks. Private banks, of course, everyone flocks to the retail guys.
Yeah.
But what about the corporate lenders in the private sector?
I think ICICI Bank is now trading at 1.1 times price to book. It's cheaper than even SBI. Not taking anything away from SBI, but the fact is it's, and a lot of people benchmark the two together. I think until the Chanda Kochhar issue is not fully resolved, and I don't want to be a judge on which way it's going to go, but the reality is I think a lot of investors are staying away from the stock for that very reason. Even at 1.1 times, people are concerned if, is she going to stay, is she not going to stay? And if the fact is, if she leaves, I think would be a positive. But there's a lot of talk and chatter and concern around that. Until that isn't resolved, I don't see the stock necessarily moving up. On Axis, I think at 1.5, 1.6 times, I think a lot of the bad news seems to be starting to get priced in. We'll have to see who the successor is to Shikha.
Okay. What do you do with a stock like Tata Motors? I mean, whatever the management tries to do, how much ever they try to assuage concerns, the stock just refuses to move up.
Yeah.
You see inherent problems there?
No, I think it's been an underperformer for the last 4 years. I fully agree with what you're saying. And but I think, we've got to give Chandra a chance to try and, resuscitate this stock, because you're right, it hasn't really done much. The good news is on the domestic side, you're seeing both the passenger vehicles and the trucks starting to actually gain traction. I believe the new launches have been very well received on the passenger vehicle segment. As far as the rest of Tata Motors is concerned, I think there seems to be a real restructuring underway with the selling of investments in non-core assets. And of course, the employee stock option plan, hopefully that will yield results as well.
Okay. Mid-caps, they've seen a lot of sell-off in the past 12 months after a roaring 2017. Where will you look for value?
So, I think it's again very stock specific, and every major fund manager from maybe early last year was hoping and praying for a mid-cap correction. Now that it's finally come, people are panicking and wondering, oh, gee, where do we go from here? And, is the mid-cap story over? And, really talks of doom. The reality is there are, some very strong companies that are linked to different sectors. I'll give you an example. Kajaria Ceramics, terrific company, okay? But that whole sector has been linked to the real estate sector, which in turn, of course, is struggling, as we've discussed earlier. So I think some of these companies are very good and, are starting to look very attractive from an entry point. So would I write off the mid-cap space? Not at all. I think, there's some great value picks in the mid-cap space.
Okay, you spoke about Kajaria.
Yeah.
Tell us elsewhere, where would value emerge? What kind of stocks interest you?
Stocks, I think, that have listed in India, have the headquarters and the manufacturing bases in India, but their business is mostly offshore. So Motherson Sumi, I think I discussed this the last time as well on your show, which I think is a phenomenal story.
52-week low now.
Yes, absolutely. So I think look at that. I'm tempted to look at pharma as a space where businesses are overseas but they're headquartered in India. But I think that's still some time away, unfortunately.
They've risen about 20% this month.
Yes, they have. But there's a big talk about the third wave in the pharma industry starting when I haven't really seen too much evidence.
Who would you put on your radar to judge? Would it be the Aurobindos or would it be the bigger boys like Sun, Lupin, Dr. Reddy's? Where would your eyes be trained?
I think, you're seeing a lot of places where there are generational changes and shifts taking place. So if you look at Cadila, as Mr. Pankaj Patel, has handed over the reins to his son, I think he's a very competent guy. I've spent personally time with him, and I'm very impressed with him. So I think that's the thing you want to look at from where do some of these companies go forward. Similarly with Nilesh at Lupin, and Nilesh and Vanita both, of course. But again, phenomenal transformation and taking the company to the next level.
Okay, so talking about taking the company to the next level, today Mahindra & Mahindra is in focus because they're having their first ever farm day in Nagpur. And the company is now focusing a lot on not just tractors but the entire farm, the agri business. You think from these all-time highs there's still more to go for a stock like MNL?
I think you brought up a great stock because I've always wondered why Mahindra & Mahindra does not perform. So if you look at the last 4 years, the stock's really gone nowhere, unfortunately. Over the last 5 years, stock's doubled, but over the last 4 years, the stock's done nothing. And if you look at Mahindra & Mahindra as a company, it ticks literally all the boxes from a corporate governance standpoint, management bandwidth standpoint, a great play on rural India.
Yes.
So you've got everything going for it, but the stock refuses to perform and remains range bound. So I'm not sure what that trigger is going to be to actually have the stock break out and really show significant performance from here on.
Okay. Speaking of management changes and stocks breaking out, Jubilant Food took your breath away. What about your view on Jubilant Food itself and generally the consumption space?
So that brings me to a segment of the country which, is seems to be in its own orbit, which is the auto space. Right? So if you look at Maruti, and I was talking to a fund manager last week itself, and I said, why is the stock going up? And, the more you think about it, because the rest of the country seems to be not doing that well as much as, some of the auto companies are doing. I think it's definitely a reflection of the 7th Pay Commission that's clearly kicked in. And, discretionary spending is coming back. And Maruti has always historically been a big beneficiary of the 7th Pay Commission or the Pay Commission increases.
This space of consumption related a lot to both urban and rural consumption, whether, it's names like Bata, Britannia, Pidilite, Page Industries, all of them hitting new highs. Valuations, of course, going through the roof. But from that space, what do you like the most?
I like all of them, actually. So You know, and a lot of companies, of course, specific
to
Pidilite.
Can you repeat the list?
I know. Can you repeat the list? I'll buy all of them. But the reality is that I think a lot of companies are starting to attack the adhesives space. So Astral, for example, is now going after that space as well. And again, a great story, done a phenomenal job in the CPVC market. And I hope they can repeat the success in adhesives as well.
Okay. Well, I wanted to come to the NBFCs. Their heyday, of course, was post-demonetization when wholesale rates crashed.
Yeah.
Now good competition coming from the banks. But Bajaj Finance is still at all-time highs.
Yeah. See,
how do you sift over there?
I think every industry has got a leader like a Bajaj Finance, which has just been a significant rocking compounding story. I mean, the market cap is, of course, more than Bajaj Auto now. But the reality is, I think that company is going to just go from strength to strength. Phenomenal leadership. And anybody holding the stock should continue to own it. I would not sell that.
Okay. You spoke about Astral Poly, right? That
yes.
was the stock. Okay, in the adhesive space. We should just get that stock up for you. I think it's given 20% returns in this year itself. Any of these sort of companies that you're looking at? The smaller ones, the non-index large caps?
You know, I would look at... I think, let me bring up telecom for a minute. And I've been very, very bearish on the telecom space. But I think, and people ask me all the time, what should you buy in the telecom space? You know, Idea at 60 rupees or 50 rupees, is that a buy? And I think the answer is no, frankly. I'd rather buy, given the onslaught and given the pain that's going on in the telecom space, I'd rather buy companies that are beneficiaries of the 4G movement, which is, let's say, Saregama or Shimaru. Okay. I'd put money on these companies.
Okay, that's interesting. Clearly the way in which India is entertaining itself has changed a goodish bit, especially with Relgio making data so cheap and accessible. Thank you very much, Gautam Trivedi. It's always a pleasure having you with us, and perhaps we will have more occasion to speak to you. This is going to be a year of elections, so let's see how things pan out on that end as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for joining us. Okay, we have another big important company joining us after this break. Vinod Dasari, the Managing Director of Ashok Leyland, is going to join us. The Ambit India Access Conference is underway in London, and we're getting a lot of guests from there. Vinod Dasari in a minute.
Hi, welcome back. Well, it's not such a bad morning, actually. The Sensex and the Nifty have now moved into the green, and the Bank Nifty has also recovered some of its losses. In fact, you know, on the gainers list, there are plenty of stocks which are now inching up. Idea Cellular has interestingly moved up in the last 2-3 minutes. By the way, just pull up the chart of Avanti Feeds. Remember, this stock was on our radar last week. If we can just pull up Avanti Feeds right now, 17% higher on that stock. It should come up. There you have it. Look at the momentum there, both volume and price very high. Bata as well is inching back to its all-time highs, which was about 847. It's back at 843 right now. But Ashok Leyland is one stock on our radar. The stock has been slipping over the last few days. It's lost 11% this month, but over the last 1 year, the stock has still gained over 40%. Vinod Dasari, the MD of Ashok Leyland, is with us. He joins us from the sidelines of the Ambit India Access Conference that's underway in London. Mr. Dasari, good morning. After what has been a really strong year for you, what are you forecasting for FY19, at least the initial part?
I think FY19 is going to be pretty good. The industry volume is still growing, partly because of the growth in GST post GDP post the GST. So we're seeing a hub and spoke where the larger trucks are selling, and the more large trucks that sell, the better for Ashok Leyland, because that's where we are stronger. The other thing that's happening is the infrastructure build. The construction is going on very strong, so tippers are growing very well. It'll be slight slowdown in July and August because of the monsoon, but I think the construction will be back again, and so I'm quite bullish this year. I think the overall volume should grow by about 10%, but rather than look at number of trucks sold, if you look at the type of trucks sold, the bigger the trucks that are sold, the better for us.
Good morning, Mr. Dasari. You know, all this improvement in demand is coming at a time when raw material prices are also rising. Is it easy to pass on these raw material costs because you see demand good over the next few quarters?
No, the RM cost was higher in the beginning, and we did take a pricing action, so our margins are actually better now than before. and I expect the RM cost to stabilize. I don't think it will go up much more.
Okay, despite passing on commodity costs, will there be any pressure as far as margins are concerned? I mean, is discounting still very high?
Discounting is there because there are some competitors who are trying to just buy market share. We're not going to focus on buying market share. I'm happy with the market share that we have. We're not looking to substantially grow our market share. We are focused on the non-truck side also to grow that much faster. We're doing very well on our LCV, where we've been consistently growing, and we're growing our spare parts, our customer solutions business, our digital business, our power solutions business, and our international. All these things, historically we were only focused on our domestic truck business, which used to be about 90% of our business. Now slowly the domestic truck business has come down to about 60-65% of our business, and the other businesses are growing faster, which are more profitable also.
All right, so it's easy to expect another year of double-digit growth, you think?
Yes, I think so. We should expect another year for double-digit growth, while we continue to maintain the double-digit operating margin that we've been historically able to maintain.
What is your view on domestic medium and heavy commercial vehicles growth? I mean, has that peaked out in any way, and would that start to weaken from FY19 because all of the positive triggers have played out, over the last 6 months or so?
No, I think FY19 will be stronger because of the construction boom. FY20 will also be very good because of the pre-Euro 6. I expect next year to grow about 20%. The year after, when Euro 6 comes, it's expected to come down, but the bullish talk even in FY21 is primarily because of the scrappage scheme. Even if you look at the 20-year scheme that has come now, the government is planning to launch from April 2020 for vehicles which are more than 20 years. That alone is about 200,000 vehicles, so we are quite excited about that.
So you don't buy the analyst's view that truck demand growth will decline to 8% compounded annually, over the next 2 years? I mean, at least that's the view, that it will decline to single digits.
I think for FY19 it will be about 10% growth. FY20 should see about 20% growth.
If in numbers, can you tell us what growth rates are we looking at?
So I expect the growth to be at least 10 to 15% this year, and maybe 15 to 20% next year.
Okay, 15 to 20% next year. You've been there for the Ambit India Access Conference. What kind of feedback are you getting from investors? Are they in general optimistic about India and the corporate growth story?
They're all asking whether the industry is growing, and they're seeing the impact of the GDP growth because of the GST, and what that is doing is it's creating the hub and spoke, where the larger trucks are selling very well, where we are very strong, and we're also very strong on the light commercial vehicle. Ever since we bought out the shares of Nissan, our light commercial vehicles have been growing substantially. Last year we grew about 30-odd%. Our international business grew about 40-odd%. Our spare parts business grew about 30-odd%. Our defense, we have won huge number of tenders in the last couple of years. That alone cumulatively will be nearly 10,000 crores worth of business once the orders start to come in. So the non-truck side itself, we are quite excited about. It's growing at a pace fast, twice the rate of the truck business. The aftermarket and the solutions business that we are building will also help us provide substantial growth. I'll give you an example of Service Mandi, which is a digital initiative that we created, where you can find on an app any mechanic nearby. And that business, people said nobody will find mechanics using an app, but just in the month of May we had more than 30,000 transactions, and it's growing very fast.
Okay, all the best for this fiscal. Mr. Dasari, thanks so much for joining us. Well, here's a quick programming reminder. Our special series Hunting for Value will focus on one stock today that has lost almost 50% in 2018. The drug maker has been sinking. Does it have the right formulations to revive itself? Is it a value pick or a value trap? Catch all the analysis at 9:50 a.m. this morning.